On this edition of Burger Brothers, we head inside the mysterious JJ's Gourmet Burger Cafe. How mysterious is it? Well, a lot of folks like to come here and enjoy lunch hour. It's only open from 11 to 1, 4 days a week. So 8 hours a week this place is open. We're gonna try the delicious ribeye burgers inside. They are There are so many stories about this place, and you know, I mean, I guess start at the beginning, like before the burgers, before the war, growing up in Tulsa. Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'd left when I was late teens, and then educated and got my experience in the show biz and all that stuff in California. So I brought some of those ideas back, and Tulsa was still, even in the late '60s, almost middle '60s. Was still like 1953. They had bell bottoms that just got here, and they were getting rid of bell bottoms on the West Coast, but they were selling them here and in Puerto Rico, oddly enough. But, so I brought those ideas back and started like a collectible. I got this building, and I'm just going to do antique collectible California ideas. And a friend of mine was going out of business up on 15th Street, and he had some youth-orientated products, T-shirts, paraphernalia, jewelry, everything that goes into a head shop, record shop at that time. So I just bought his stock out and moved it in here to sell it. Well, that caught on pretty good, so I developed the Rubicon. From that, it's a head shop name, and did that for several years, and then opened it up as a drinking, eating place, and we called it Rico's Blue Rose back then, mainly because of the blue laws and a little nefarious thing. And did that for some years until finally everybody that was coming here had either migrated on and married and moved away, or they'd changed totally from disco to rock to whatever they were in. And so I opened up the burger place because that's what people wanted. And there wasn't a gourmet high-end burger place here in Tulsa, so I started it. And it's been doing it ever since. And we're coming up on my occupation of this building 50 years.
Wow.
So I've had to remake myself a few times as generations change, but I made it a half century, so you know, that's all you can try. So,
you've seen a lot during that time.
Oh yeah.
Kind of tell us, you know, California, what the experience was like out in California.
Well, not to where you'll have to edit it too much. It was the sex generation. It was a generation. Everybody wanted their freedom. Everyone wanted to do your own thing. There was even a popular play back there called Do Your Own Thing. I was a lighting director on that play. So it was, young people just changed. They weren't going to just high school to college and so on. They wanted that long hair experience and freedom, and about 30 or 40 million young people decided to do that, and that's where that generation came from. And all the experiences in between with your big rock stars that came in and out, or one-hit wonders, and crazy names, Thunderclap Newman and things like that for names for bands, when we used to come with just one name for a band and it represented everybody. Now they had totally changed rock and roll, and it became hard metal and soft metal. So it's quite an experience just to watch. And these generations, we're not talking 40 years, we're talking 4 years, maybe 7, and they're gone. You know? And now a whole new generation comes in. So
Absolutely.
If you don't move, they leave you.
Nice.
You don't have much choice.
Now, when I first came to town, everybody told me about this place. They was like, you have to try J&J's.
Oh, that's
But then they
complimentary.
warned me too. They said, beware. And I said, what? They said, you go see for yourself. So when I first came in, I told you, I said, you know, your reputation precedes you. I found you to be nothing but a gentleman, and the burger is fantastic, but it's a different burger. It's not like, your menu is very unique, and it's very linear. And I look at it more as performance art, because I feel like I'm just part of the show that you're putting on, because your hours, for people who don't know, are
11 to 1, Tuesday through Friday.
Yeah, so I missed it for, you know, the first year I was here, I'd drive by, like, I would look at my watch and I'm like, yeah, I just missed it. You know, it's just very easy to do. But when I finally got here, I found a tremendous overall experience. There's nothing about it I didn't like. But you also have your critics or your detractors
Sure.
who are
Yeah.
either intimidated or don't like your style of doing it, which is great. I think
Yeah.
go somewhere else if you're not. It's your business, and
Yeah.
so I think it's fantastic. I think we even waited on reaching out to you because we wanted to make sure we were going to come with hidden cameras and whatever, and just try to go that way if you said no. But so tell me how you developed your menu and tell people also what it is, because it's very
Right. When I was a young man, there was a man named John Connors here in Tulsa, and he had a restaurant called Connors Corner. It was at 31st and Harvard. I managed a men's clothing store at Ranch Acres at the time, and his burgers were excellent. He was in business with John Hastings from Hasty Bake.
Oh wow!
And so they were now open grilling, charring their foods rather than frying them and putting them on a griddle. So I fell in love with them, and I got to know the guys and the recipes and how they would work their meats and seasonings, and I just kept it in my back of my mind, didn't use it for years. And then when I came back and said, well, what about that Connors type burger? And I said, well, I still have a good mixture and memory of the recipes. So playing around with the spices and herbs, I got back to the original thing, and I produced it, and everyone that bites into them says it's the best burger I ever had.
Fantastic.
So I've never changed anything.
Nice.
So,
But you also, when one comes here, there's a whole chain of command, and so you first start with.
what you'd like to drink on because your appetizer of a shrimp cocktail comes even before you get to food or order.
Right.
Because the one thing I hate waiting for food when I go out.
So that in itself is unique.
Yeah.
You get like a rib and a little shrimp cocktail, which you usually don't expect with
a little extra stuffed, and it changes it's a 3 flavors: sour, sweet, hot, all mixed up. And so every time you do something, it'll complement the next bite.
Right.
You bite the burger, then you have rib or have beans or have whatever side you select.
Right, there's some good beans as well.
So, yeah. So people like our beans too, and that's I could suggest it to them, but it's kind of like trying to tell someone what a Dr. Pepper tastes like if they've never tasted one. It's hard to describe.
Right.
So they almost have to try one to know what's the difference. That's That's what we encourage them.
And then your burger is different. Your burger is
Oh yeah, we use a very high-end meat. It is proprietary on our seasonings and our meat, because I mention it to one person, they're going to invade this poor guy, and he will, because most people buy the commercial places out to sell burgers. They sell hundreds of burgers a day, so they buy lots of boxes of hamburger meat. Well, I don't buy what they buy. I have to get mine about 4 or 5 in the morning because it's a special size, special blend. Because they have to clean that machine after they make my stuff and then start making the commercial type burgers.
But is it ribeye or is that
it's a mixture of high end.
Right. And you don't find that in normal.
Yeah, and
burgers
you have to have a little chuck in it, because that high end of meat, it'll fall apart if you don't put a little chuck in it.
Nice.
So that's what we do, about 13% chuck.
Awesome. And then there's a coffee at the end.
Yeah, you get a nice cappuccino and a dessert at the end. And if you don't want it, you don't have to eat it. But it's there. People go, "What's this?" I said, "It's called dessert." I even had them put on the plate, dessert, because they always ask me what it is. So
that's right.
They get a 3-course, almost luxurious type lunch. Most burger places just wham bam, thank you, and they eat them in the car or they eat them in a kiddie's playground.
Right.
And here this is an adult type place with mood lighting and music to go with adult eating. So it's a totally different atmosphere.
And so the $25 burger is a misnomer. You're actually getting a 3-course meal and the ambiance of an adult. Now, speaking of adult, are children welcome here?
As long as they're not in diapers.
Okay.
That would ruin everybody's meal.
Yeah.
So as long as they're young people, but I don't recommend little children, 5, 6 years old, eat high-end seasoned meats. It's up to their mother and dad to know, will this be too rich for my son or daughter?
Right.
So that's the only thing I would say against it. I certainly wouldn't do it, because it might give a little person who hasn't a complete digestive tract yet upset tummy or I can't eat it all, mommy, that type of thing. So I try not to encourage little kids.
Now tell me about the VIP card as well.
We did that for about a year. We got several articles, magazines, books, DVDs done about us, and we just were overwhelmed. They were lined up outside the building, which is in my world, a panic situation. I just close.
You're like me.
I
You're
thought
like, whoa! Just let me go back upstairs.
I thought there'd been a car accident. But so I issued cards to everyone that I knew as a regular
Right.
to let them in.
Right.
And after all the cards were gone, that, of course, there were lots of people that didn't get cards. So we finally let that just take care of itself. I still have people that have had them years come in and say, look, I still have my cards.
Yeah, you gave me one too, which is like,
Yeah.
you know, I was looking for it in my wallet. I might have to check Ron's pockets when we're done with the segment. But
Yeah.
it's a source of pride.
Now-
In the burger world, it is of the highest order to show your VIP card.
Now, before that, the restaurant that you had VIP cards there as well.
Membership cards.
Yeah, membership cards.
Well, that was the law. Back in the day of liquor by the wink, I guess is a kind way of saying it, when you went into a place, you had to either buy a card, be given a card, bring your own bottle in, and they would serve you out of that. So that's where the membership card thing, everybody had membership cards back then. And also it can regulate the good and the bad. You know, you can, now it may be against the law to turn away someone with a shaved head and a knife in his belt, but you never know who's coming in the door if you're serving alcohol. So I haven't served alcohol for 30 years of any kind, beer, of any kind. I just serve soft drinks. So I'm not in the nightlife business anymore, but that was the time when you literally came in, you showed an ID with a membership card. One to show you're over 18, one to show you're a member of the establishment. And I had a bunch in my wallet at the time too, because if I wanted to go out here and dance or something, you had to have a card or you couldn't get a drink. It's the way it was back then. So,
Now, financially, do you make enough in that 2-hour window to? Obviously, you've been here for years, so
Yeah.
it's not. I don't know that it's you're doing it.
well,
for the,
it's certainly
for the-
not. It's not anybody else's business idea would be a bad idea.
Right.
But considering the 5 decades of earning money, paying off all my liabilities,
Right.
I don't have any overhead. So yeah, I can do fine. Only problem is a lot of people are upset because I don't have longer hours or weekend hours or even a phone. I mean, I haven't had a phone here since 1976. But since the advent of computers and smartphones, they're going to find you,
figure it out.
you know,
Yeah,
eventually.
Now, was that a thing in the past? I mean, basically, it was just word of mouth and.
Yeah, I did. Early days, I did advertising when it was nightclub.
Right.
I did KMOD a lot of their time, and I would go make my own spots because I knew how to do
Yeah, you
it.
got that voice. You can
And
say
just
that.
knock out 10 spots, come back, and they'd call up and say, "You can't use that for background music," you know. And I said, "Why?" "Well, it's Led Zeppelin." He knows who he is. But so I had to change some things, and I used jazz instead of rock and roll. And Oklahoma's, at least Tulsa, has always been a tough market because it's picky. You know, I mean, we have so many people that do this, and all the rest of them do that, and the generations have changed and have become younger. But when I was a young man, mature men and women are the people who ran these businesses, not young upstarts like we have today. I mean, there are guys 23 years old that are very successful, and they've only been at it just a couple of years. You know, it took me almost a lifetime to learn. So it's times they are changing stuff, and makes it interesting though.
Yeah.
You know.
What about fact versus fiction? You know, the internet. You know, people,
Sure.
You know, there's all kinds of he's like the soup Nazi. He's,
Yeah.
You know, he's this, he's that. What's the biggest misconception about this place and you?
Probably that people believe more of the wild stuff on the internet. I've been called the burger Nazi. I consider that a compliment, you know, but they kind of giggle at it at other places. And I said, well, that's okay. As long as they're talking about you, that's okay. But I don't know how many I've turned away from the days I opened as a retail business, but it's got to be thousands, you know, maybe 10,000s. But I can only hold 52 people down here, and when the upstairs was open, I held 110. So you couldn't let them all in anyway. And it gets to a point of diminishing returns. Do people want to come to a packed place, loud and noisy, or they want to come have a candlelight meal? So as I got older, I opted for the quieter atmosphere rather than the loud, yeah, you know. So it kind of took care of itself, and your crowd turns over. people you take care of. So that happens in everybody's business, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I just watch the ones that stay the longest, you know. And we've had some great ones here in Tulsa. I mean, that I went to as a kid, and they're still here, you know. Some of them aren't, but that's only because they're probably family owned, and they said families had enough of it, or that the next generation didn't want to do it. You know, their kids didn't want to be in the restaurant business.
Now, I was here one day when a construction worker came in and he was trying to get it to go, and you persuaded him to have a seat and take it. He's like, "You got an hour?" He's like, "Look at his watch." He's like, "Trust me, you got an hour. Have a seat. I'm going to bring you a thing." And he sat down and he enjoyed it. And it was almost like just we're so conditioned to just grab it and run and be out, and that he actually was like, he didn't know what to do. Nobody ever told him what to do before, so he sat down and he enjoyed it. And by the end, he was like, "Thank you." It was like, you know, he had a great time, it was very unique to see that, and that's what's fascinating about this. This is a. Although you say you brought some California stuff to it or whatever, this is uniquely Tulsa to me. This is one of one.
Yeah.
And I tell people, because people will say like, "I'm not paying $25 for a burger." I'm like, "You're not paying $25 for a burger. Yeah. You're paying $25 for the privilege to see a one of one, all-encompassing, unique gentleman burger establishment." I try to explain in here, it's like a pirate ship with bric-a-brac from every, you know, and it's just got this vibe that I've never seen anywhere on the planet, especially for a burger joint.
How many burger places have stained glass windows?
I mean, when you pan around the room, you'll see what I'm talking about. But there's everything.
It has it makes it 5 o'clock p.m. in the fall all year round with the stained glass windows, and there wasn't one stained glass company that would make stained glass windows for you in Tulsa when I got this place. So I literally had, what am I going to do? I want stained glass. And I met a kid from, was going to school at Northeastern State. And he was doing this in his back room, making stained glass windows. And he made all of these, 17 of them. All custom made, all just like I wanted them. And he just walked through my door and I said, "Can you make me one?" So he just started and he just kept going until they were all. So I've got a permanent 5 p.m. redwood and stained glass. You know.
Awesome. Yeah, very unique. And so that's what I'm saying. For you know, the $25 thing is cheap all in, and I think it's something I've embarrassed local Tulsans. I've only moved here a year and a half ago, but I'll tell them, "You never been to J&J's?" They're like, "Oh, I heard about it," or you know, I'm like, "But you never went?" I said, "God forbid he closes or he doesn't want to do it anymore. How could you live with yourself saying I never?" And that's why you saw us come in a few times with locals that you know, because they're like, "He's right. We better go check it out," because you've been a patron of other businesses where people know who you are, of course, but they're like, "We never went over there," and so it's nice to be able to kind of bring people who maybe grew up here their whole life and then were either intimidated or couldn't catch your hours or didn't make it. So I encourage people to, like, you know, see something that's truly unique in your own backyard. Well, even if once, and God forbid someone doesn't like it, so what? At least, hey, I went, I bought the ticket. It was okay, you know. I love it, but and everybody who's come here has loved it, and I've even changed my friend's mind about coming.
The fact is, if you couldn't go out and have 2 Carl Scotch and waters for $25 anymore.
No, of course.
Just 2 drinks, and that's just alcohol, no food value whatsoever. Here for $19.95 plus tax, you can get a 3-course luxury meal, and obviously America loves their hamburgers, so this is one way to bring it up another level. And people will bring their young children here and they say, "This is the benchmark. This is how you ought to eat a burger." So they're even starting them to realize this is a restaurant, not a
fast food
drive-through. Fast food.
And you know, on the walls, I mean, there's tons of stuff in here that I would imagine each of these has some sort of significance to you. Looking over here, there's a $2 bill. Any significance?
Christmas time, people used to get those in packets, and they were tipping with $2 bills, and I think that was probably the first one my bartender took in. And there's no drawer for a $2 bill anymore, so they always end up stuck someplace. And I stuck that one on the wall. But I've got them from, I don't know, 8 or 10 different denominations of notes and crazy stuff. You know, Vietnam, Canada, even a picture on Man Cave up there. Nice. Shurikens, just a mixed genius of all different things that I saw someplace in my life, from teen to 70 plus. So I'm a magpie collector. You know, my house is the same way. It's just covered with this kind of stuff.
Nice. Now I read a well-written article on you as well, and it said you were living in California. That's what really struck a chord with me. You've talked about California, but we kind of lived in the same areas in Sherman Oaks, and you know, that was my old stomping grounds. But then I also read about a nudist camp, and we used to pass through Topanga Canyon.
Yeah.
In the 70s and 60s. That was a big deal.
Yeah,
that was alternative living in the rock community.
There were 3 up there in the canyons back then that I knew of, and they weren't. What they basically were is a place for you to go do what you wanted in privacy, and you had to pay a lot of money to join them. I went up as a visitor, didn't know anything about it. Ex-movie star friend of mine introduced me to it. He said, "Oh, you'll like this, JJ." I think I was 19 or 20. So you betcha I will. And I went up there. I joined immediately. And it was $500, and that was a lot of money back then. And the guy said, "Well, don't worry about it. It's tax exempt." Oh, wow. And I said, "Joining a nudist camp is tax exempt?" And he said, "Well, this is California. They teach Tai Chi and meditation, so they get the educational exemption. Nice. And they have a nurse on duty, so it's deductible. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's tax deductible nudist camp.
Nice,
amazing. So
just teach Tai Chi.
But I got to meet a lot of movie people, television celebrities would go there. Lots of them. Lots of James. If they were shooting a James Bond movie, you'd see a lot of the Bond cast up there. I met people that later that summer I went to Spain with them and ran the bulls just because Hemingway did it, you know. Yeah. And we're up there drinking wine, getting crazy, and we ought to be in Spain or we ought to be in Paris. Well, the next day we booked it on and off we went to run the bulls or wherever adventure would take us. So.
What was that like, running with the bulls?
I wouldn't do it again. The way you run the bulls is you get as drunk as you possibly can, because they're going to scare you. You know, we're little people and the bulls are big, and about 200 to 300 people run them at the same time on a narrow street that's boarded up 9 feet all the way into the arena from where they start them. My friend and I, he was so drunk and wasted, I tried to talk him out of it. So I jumped in the arena in the street and I said, his name was Biff, I said, "Biff, can you run 50 yards? And he says, "I can't even spell it," you know. But that rocket had gone off and here come the bulls, so we ended up running the bulls whether we liked it or not. Nice. Absolutely everyone that ran the bulls that day passed us or over us, and so did all the bulls. We weren't Wile E. Coyote. We thought we were running and we weren't going anywhere, and everybody else right on past us. So, but we made it. Nice. I wouldn't recommend it. You know, not a healthy run.
I feel you have a million stories like that, and I feel like the walls kind of tell it. They give a glimpse into it, and that's why I think the whole experience is tremendous.
Life is an adventure, and if you go, like I've talked to you before, if like almost all of my friends and relatives, but they went from high school directly into college that year, or even summer school, then college. They never left the educational venue. Right. Then when that was finished, they either owed so much money or they'd already married or something. They had to go right into business. And when they woke up from what happened, they were 50 or 60 years old and they had done nothing but paint a white picket fence 4 times and had 2 kids that now needed more money. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go to Egypt and stand on the pyramids. I wanted to go to Machu Picchu. All the mysterious, adventurous places. Anything that I didn't understand or was a mystery. Right. So I just went there and found out.
And as weird as it sounds, it all feels like it culminated in this gourmet burger in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is fantastic. Because it's very unique.
It's certainly been good for me. I haven't had to look for employment for a long time. So it's good. You know, keeping myself together.
That's right.
So to speak.
I kind of feel like the best way to wrap this up is for him to throw us out of the place. Want to fire us off?
You guys are out of here.
During the course of putting together this episode, we did learn that JJ is planning to close down the business over the next several months, spring or summer of 2019. So if you get a chance, go inside JJ's one lunch hour and enjoy a classic ribeye burger. They are delicious.